My name's Amy Johnston, and this is Case Study for EDL 851. The story that we reviewed for the case study was from Crestview Elementary. It was a school in a rural setting with approximately 25 employees that had pretty steady employment there. There hadn't been turnover in the last 8 years. The principal was in her third year, and there hadn't been much need for change due to good test scores, good attendance, and happy families. At the end of last year, there was a first grade teacher that seemed more irritable, less friendly with staff, and the principal found out through the grapevine kind of that there was trouble with her family and she was going through a separation. The principal hoped over the summer things would be resolved, but when they returned, she was still irritable with staff. She was frustrated with changes in the curriculum, and after a while, parents started requesting that their children be moved from her class. The principal decided to visit with her, and the day that the principal was going to visit with her, upset father came in and asked to have a conference with the teacher that hadn't been returning messages to his wife. So the principal set up a conference with the first grade teacher and the father and herself. And when they got together, the teacher was inappropriate in her tone and her actions with the father. So the principal dismissed the father and said she would contact him later with a solution and that she needed to visit with her teacher first. The things I know was that Mrs. Horton, the first grade teacher, she had changed in her demeanor from how she was when the principal first came to the job, and the principal had not been able to observe any problems in the classroom, even though she'd been in the classroom. There were several families reporting that their children were upset and not wanting to attend school because of the teacher, and Mrs. Horton did act inappropriate during a conference with a parent. Things I don't know is what caused Mrs. Horton's change in behavior. I don't know if she had the support staff observed any inappropriate behavior towards students, such as yelling or irritability. And the third thing that I'm not sure that I know is, does Mrs. Horton have a good relationship with the principal or not? So based on what I know, I think that the problem is that Mrs. Horton's personality toward the student and parents has changed from previous years, and the principal has actually observed her now acting inappropriately toward a parent. Plan of action. First, I would clearly let Mrs. Horton know that her behavior toward the parent was inappropriate, and I would tell her that there will be a meeting after school so that both the principal and the teacher can have time to calm down and reflect. And I would contact the superintendent to let him know of the situation. The second thing I would do in my plan of action would be during the after school meeting, let the teacher know that I was concerned about her and that also the behavior that she had with the parent was inappropriate and unacceptable. And then I would wait to see what her reaction was, if she was open to change and wanting to do better, or if she was opposed to change. If she's remorseful, I would guide her to correct the situation. And if she's defensive and didn't want to change, I would contact human resources for options on how to handle the situation. So the strategies I would use to implement my plan would include being compassionate for the teacher. Obviously, there's been a change in her life that she's having trouble figuring out. I would be firm and unwavering about the fact that you can't treat parents the way she did. And then I would also rely on resources from human resources if needed. It's best for students for the principal to identify the issue with their teacher and guide her to rebuild the relationship with parents and students. It's not in the best interest to yank the teacher out of the class, and I feel like the principal, if they want to correct things, need to do it with students and family and with the current teacher. Data to support the resolution. There were obvious signs from the teacher before this outburst that there were issues. and that's evidenced by the staff had told the principal that she was stressed and less friendly. The principal had noticed she was stressed and less friendly. The teacher had a history of quality teaching. She was identified as Teacher of the Year for the district. And we do also know that from evidence that there was no evidence of abusive behavior when the principal was in the classroom. No yelling, no inappropriate comments. When I responded to this problem, I thought I would have approached the teacher at the end of the previous year instead of waiting until the situation got bigger. I felt sad for the teacher that she was so unhappy and upset, but I also valued the principal for escorting the parent from the meeting so that they could deal with it between the teacher and principal and not be in front of the parent for that solution. Some things that are still unresolved, if Mrs. Horton will be open to improve, we don't know that yet. How the principal will handle the request to move the student. There were not just one, but several parents that wanted students moved, and whether the staff will be supportive of the peer or pull back from interactions. So whether the staff will feel like the teacher has been targeted or treated unfairly. Examples of promoting academic success of every student. Number one, the principal supported the plan to pilot a new reading program, even though there was disagreement from Mrs. Horton. The principal was aware that they had above average test scores and good attendance. And thirdly, as far as academic success, Mrs. Horton did not have it at her fingertips for the conference, but she did have examples of Julie's work and grades. Some examples of well-being of every student. First, the principal observed the classroom frequently to check for appropriate interactions. Second, there was a conference with the parent to discuss the student that was upset and distressed. And lastly, the principal told the parent she would get back with him as soon as possible about moving his daughter because she recognized that was a concern with the parent and the parent wouldn't want to wait on an answer for very long. Examples of enhancing instructional capacity. The entire school was using the same reading curriculum, so there was some continuity with that, which shows us that there is an emphasis on learning and meeting standards. I also thought that there was instructional capacity when the superintendent let the principal know of the concerns and let the principal handle the situation. And then lastly, I thought that due to the staff's knowledge of Mrs. Horton's rocky home life, it showed evidence that the staff members communicated with each other about things outside of school. Thank you.